reflexivity, so we don't bother to teach it to anybody except maybe grad students, and then
It's like very academic.
yeah, it's weird. Yeah, you're right. It's like a weird academic thing that you're supposed to do in certain situations, but it's not something you like carry around in your life and do. It's just like, oh, in this instance, I must be reflexive. Is it cultural, do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's American,
Oh.
culturally American,
Okay.
to kind of be casted of specific, maybe. I don't know. How do we want this conversation to go?
It can go wherever it goes.
Because yeah, I mean, like I think we've just like stripped everything down culturally, and I'm just gonna say it, to whiteness. I mean, that's part of our culture, is to kind of lose these individualistic things that make us interesting and make us are the makeup of who we are, and just streamline it. So I'm sure it's like it's in there somewhere, you know?
But at the same time, we seem to value almost excessively so this sort of we prize this sort of radical individualism, like you've got to, you have the right self-defense. There's a topic for that. It's like everybody has the right to defend themselves. Stand your ground. There's no sense of community involved, or vaccinations. Well, if you don't want to vaccinate your kids, that's your prerogative. It's your parent. They're your kids. There's none of this sense that you do this for us.
Right.
We do this for us because we all need it to be done, or it's better for us if we do it. It's the sense like, don't worry about that. It's what you want to do. It's who you are. Gosh, I just about pulled my thing out. Sorry.
Good.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, we've definitely moved away from any kind of communal sharing sharing resources. I think, and within that, yes, it's like it's an individualized culture, but we've lost. We're also like fed and sold what that individuality is. Like it's not through knowing and having ties with who we are ancestrally and with culture. I mean, we can't. I mean, it's like a ghost of a person at that point. It just becomes like a. We've in a way, in a really morbid way, now that I'm thinking of it, just kind of feeling like a construct. Yeah, just like a construct of a person in a way.
So I can tell you're an individual because you have unnaturally colored hair. It's purple, and you've stretched your earlobes down to your shoulders, and you've got a septum piercing or whatever that is through your nose. Except that is itself a uniform of individuality.
My mom's gonna be like, "What happened while you were gone?"
There's a TV version. There's right there.
That's true.
I'm speaking metaphor.
Okay.
In case I guess I should mention it to the listener, to the radio only listeners. She doesn't look anything like that. Nothing whatsoever like that. Not even close. But yeah. It's weird. We package and sell individuality, and it's almost like at the same time it's very confusing because at the same time we demand conformity. It's like, oh, you're part of this group, you're this ideology, you're this political bent. You must join a group in order to be taken seriously because you have no opinion, you don't care about that.
Right. Well, yeah, and I have to label you to understand you, and anything outside of the status quo is like too much to think about.
So it's very confusing, really, being a human in this country at this time in life, sort of, in a way. And I don't know what this has to do with art or immigration. It probably has nothing to do with immigration at all, or art. But it's interesting to me. And I think it does speak to art, at least in the sense of what are artists struggling with in order to move their art into a wider, like what makes, here's a different kind of question, but what makes you want to make art that other people see instead of just going home and
Just
doing this thing
solitarily in
and
my studio.
like, hey, this is cool, put it on my wall and you're done. Why do you want other people to see it? What is that need?
So I think it's just an extension of a different form of communication and connection and humanness. It's the way that I like feel a part of humanity, you know, when someone experiences my work or sees my work and then we have a conversation about it, and you know, it doesn't stay on my work necessarily that long. You know, it goes into different topics and different areas, and it made me feel like this and it made me think about this, and you know, and that's the way that I connect with people, and that's the way I connect with other people through their art. You know, I think the most human I've ever felt, or in my feelings I've ever felt, is through the arts, not just studio or visual art, but you know, music and dance and visual, and you know, that's like the primary way that I think a lot of us who are artists know how to communicate, you know, like within whatever our realm is. So for me, I do it because I am a living, breathing human, and that's like how I communicate in a way. And that's how I know how to translate ideas. And yeah, I mean, it would just be just doing it alone or like not showing anyone. They would kind of just be like, I don't know, hermit-like, which is not a bad thing.
No.
Some people can be hermits.
So it's kind of a portal for you to get out of that isolation of self. It's like, okay, how do I touch?
But also, how do I relate to others, and vice versa, in a way that it's not getting out of self so much as like it's finding and creating this common ground that's relatable to someone else. So it's kind of like a reinforcing of my humanness, you know, when someone else says, oh yes, it made me think about this, feel like this. It's kind of like this more, maybe that ties back into this more like communal feeling and like human, like tangible, you know. It's like, okay, like here I am on the earth doing this thing, and this other person like feels it too. So,
well, we're social animals, I think. I mean, if assuming that you believe in evolution, you can go back to kind of where we came from and see that we came out of social groups. We're not like lone hunter, man. I'm a loner. You know? Well, it's nothing like that. So there is this need for community of some sort. There's that keyword, community. That people. I'm working on a project right now with someone, and that word pops up a lot. Community. What does someone mean when they say community? And it's like, well, they mean this, or they mean this, or they mean that.
For
Who
sure.
knows? Anyway, I lost my point. But yeah, I mean, that's what drives us. That is a need that we have to be grouped, and it's protective, and it feels safer, and you feel like more solidly planted, you know, when you have others of your kind around you and stuff like that. So I suppose on the bad side, that leads to a sense of, you know, partisanship and tribalism, or however you want to put it, where people are like, oh, you're one of those. You're not one of us, you know. You're them. And that's, I'll make a token reference to immigration. That's the problem with immigration as a topic in this country, is that it's people manipulate that us versus them in a way to push off anything you don't like on the other and say, well, it's their fault that you have. It's not the fact that I'm only paying you $5 an hour is not my fault. It's their fault because they make me pay you $5 an hour because they'll work for $5 an hour.
Right. Well, again, I mean, yeah, there's also no, and it's also an assumption that like my experience is your experience, right? Like everything that I've done in my life, I've done it, and you can do it too. And it doesn't, you know, and we don't, I think back to like this kind of communal and us versus them mentality, it's not like actually listening to someone else's experience. So it's like while you can be surrounded by people, you know, and feel communal and social, I think it's like really that touching on the listening and the really hearing of another person's experience as to where like humanity actually starts, you know?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just like shutting down, and it's only allowing a certain amount of your emotional capacity to be available, you know.
Would you call your art emotional?
I think it can be. Other people have described viewing it as emotional, the making of it. Not like I'm sitting in my studio weeping.
Yeah, right. I figured probably you didn't do that.
But like to all the artists out there or composers or whoever that does do that, that's you know, that's not something I'm dissing. But I think it can be emotional in the sense of the subject matter, or when I'm like exploring vacant homes and, you know, seeing the different stages that people have to leave their homes, whether it's because of foreclosure or even for me, you know, going through homes after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. So, and I use a lot of that kind of discovery and going through vacancy. So yeah, so Katrina being a natural but also social disaster.
Yeah.
And then what's happening in St. Louis, you know, it's more socially what's going on, and then nature is kind of coming in post abandonment. So I think kind of making art about it was a way for me to kind of frame bits of it and start to break it down and understand it in a micro way, because I think it was just too much.
Yeah.
Otherwise. So
Did you end up in St. Louis because you were from New Orleans? And St. Louis is the only other city like New Orleans in the U.S.? This is the kind of hard-hitting question you get here at this, a gotcha question. You're like, oh, wait, what?
Oh, no.
I wasn't prepared for that one.
no, I ended up in St. Louis because I moved there for graduate school in 2008.
But it is kind of like New Orleans in a way. There's a feeling to it
There's a
that's
French connection.
similar, I think. Because I used to live in New Orleans a long time ago.
I didn't know this.
I've
known you for a week and you never told me this?
We've had drive-by conversations. It's like, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'll see you. Yeah, that's like the extent of it. That's one reason I wanted to do this. It's like, all right, I'm going to at least sit down and talk to you for like more than like 5 minutes at a time. And I'll find something out. I'm digging,
Okay, so wait, when did you live in New Orleans?
70 something, 76, 77.
For how long?
2 years maybe.
Seafood lover?
Am I a seafood lover?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but no, I was a musician. Most of my life
nice.
I've been a musician, and so I forget how I ended up there, but somehow a band I was in got an offer to play at a club in New Orleans. We were traveling around, and we ended up in New Orleans, and then the offer opened up to like, well, you can be the house band here. It was a place called Good Time Charlie's on the corner of Cantai and Burgundy. Do you know where that is?
I know
in the
where
French quarter?
Burgundy is.
Cantai.
Conti?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's how you say it.
That's how they said it back
well
then. I was like, what? It looks like Conti, but everybody said Cantai, so that's how. Anyway, it was on the corner, and Good Time Charlie's. I'm sure it's not there anymore, but yeah, we used to play from. It was weird hours. It was like the third shift or something. So we'd start at like midnight or 1 o'clock, and go to 2 or 3 in the morning, and then like go out to eat or something, or go to this other club and see like a jazz band till it was weird.
Yeah.
The whole time I was there, I would see maybe an hour of sunlight a day. I'd get up, it'd be about 5 o'clock, and bleary-eyed walk around. I'd get some breakfast, and then the sun would go down. And that was, it was a very weird life.
Yeah.
But back then, this is way back, obviously, it was a very interesting thing for like a teenager, which I was. I was like 17 or something at the time. Yeah, it was just a really interesting life. I felt I had one of the biggest epiphanies of my life, which sounds meaningless. Every time I tell people, they go, oh. But for me, it was like a really transformative thing, because I had kind of too much sharing here. Sort of a troubled childhood. I had a hard time when I was young. So I was sort of a miserable kid, you know. And that's one reason why I was off on the road at such a young age. And I remember one time specifically, this is just really weird. I was sitting in a cafe or something on Bourbon Street or around there somewhere, one of the mini open air kind of cafes. Just feeling sorry for myself, just going, you know, I thought this was going to be so cool, and it's not, and, you know, one of those kind of things, teenage angst. Crowds of people, just lots of people, and then out of nowhere, this guy walks by, and it's like, you know how in movies they sort of force your attention to the star, and so even when there's like 100 people, you're looking right at the star, and everything. That's what it was like. He was as different from everybody around him as like a white swan and a bunch of crows. You know, it was like he just totally stood out. He looked like a movie star, and he was just walking down the street. He just walked by, and I just watched him, and I thought for that moment I felt like I was in a movie. Like I'm in a movie at this moment. I'm in a film, and that was the movie star going by. You know, it just had this weird feeling, and it just started me thinking. 1 minute before, I was just miserable and feeling like nothing was going on and there was nothing cool about my life. And the next minute, I'm in a movie. And nothing actually happened in between those two moments. So it was all me. It was my feeling about what I was doing that changed. Yeah. It wasn't what I was doing. And that taught me something about life. At least at that time, it was kind of a big deal. I learned something about like, hey, it's how you experience things is how they are to you. Right. So that's my story. It's not much of a story, but it was just a real like. No, I mean, like, I learned something all at once, you know, in one moment, as opposed to like over time. Yeah. That's my New Orleans story. Wow. I don't know. Now I don't have a moment when I was sitting on Bourbon Street. I mean, I have moments where I was sitting on Bourbon Street, but I don't know that they were ever that self-reflective. At 17. You know, I was a miserable kid. You know, I was like, this is a cool town, and I'm not having any fun. I don't know. I don't even remember what I was thinking, but yeah. Yeah. But well, that's a bit of what it's like to be inside my head throughout my life. It's always been like that. Very strange. Nice. Anyway, we're sort of approaching the end of the show. Is there something that you wanted to communicate that I just, in my meandering way, didn't get to? No. No? Okay. Not off the top of my head. You got a message. You're an artist. I have a message. Don't you have a message that you want the world to understand that something? No? Nothing? I mean, no, not that I don't have anything, but so many things. Nothing at this moment. Nothing. I mean, on the spot. Mm-hmm. On the spot. Well, sorry. I didn't mean to put you on. But, okay, so what's next? You're just here for a short time, right? Yep, I'm here for... Then you're off. Where do you go next? I go back to St. Louis. Mm-hmm. No immediate plans at the moment. I'm here for another week. I should mention the reason that I'm here is for an artist residency called Say Uncle that was started by Corey Imig, Dulcie Boehm, and Benjamin Cook, who are MFA candidates at the UIUC College of Art. Well, in the College of Art. So I'm here making art, and I'll be creating art that will be exhibited in the area by the 3 artists who started the residency. So I will go back to St. Louis. They will keep my art and then kind of move it around within the region and have these pop-up temporary exhibitions with my work. So what I've been casting while
while I'm here are different architectural kind of pieces, railings, what are they called, like newel posts?
Newel post. Yeah.
Newel posts. Different odds and ends like that, from homes, from objects that came from homes in Champaign-Urbana, and so those will be on display as I'm working on them after I'm done.
In some at Krannert or some other place on the campus?
So it won't be on campus officially. The whole idea behind the residency is about kind of the temporal nature of kind of these pop-up exhibitions and them being artists kind of initiated instead of relying on like commercial gallery spaces or institutions. It's kind of like, screw it, we're going to show our own work, and we're going to show work of people we like. So
Where do they show it?
in outdoors. So just anywhere. So there was an artist that they hosted, I think, a year ago, and they showed her work in different malls. The last artist, he has these kind of resin pours. I feel bad because I'm blanking on their names. These resin pours of puddles that they exhibited kind of just throughout town and on sidewalks and outside of other exhibition spaces. So the Say Uncle residency artists, they collaborate with other artist-run spaces in the area and in the region and kind of just pop up wherever.
So
It's kind of like art you just happen upon.
is
No formal setting.
But if you really, really, really want to happen upon it, is there some way you can kind of like get the inside word from somebody, like call up or check a website or something?
Yeah. So Instagram
Instagram.
is Instagram, Facebook, the new agey social media outlets.
Oh, you're so old. These kids and their newfangled stuff. I don't understand it, but the kids
No
are
one
really into
sends
it.
out press releases anymore, or emails, or hand letters. No, the work that I'm showing will be kind of moved around, and the artists that I mentioned, Corey Imig and Dulcie Boehm, they will be posting on their Instagram accounts.
Okay.
I will be posting on my Instagram accounts, and on the web. I want to say uncleart.com is the website, but
I'm not.
they will be kind of posting as things are popping up and coming to a town near you.
Uncle Art?
Say Uncle.
Oh, no, not Say Uncle Art, but just sayuncle.com?
No, I think there's art behind it.
We'll see what happens when I type that in. It doesn't look good.
No, it doesn't look good.
Nothing's happening.
Well, it's definitely on Facebook. Say Uncle Art on Facebook. Maybe not on website in the www world.
Yeah, that didn't get me anything. But so it's somewhere. So
It's
just
somewhere.
look for that.
If you Google Say Uncle Residency Champaign-Urbana, you'll find the outlets.
Okay. Well, that's good because I would like to see it
Yeah.
at some point.
For sure.
Rather than just a photograph of it.
Yeah.
So, I forgot what I was going to ask. Something you said spurred some thought. It's gone. Talk about ephemeral right there. That's
Yeah.
just
Just everything.
faded
gone.
away. So, like, do you have like a, how do I put this? Like a goal? Like, okay, I'm doing all these, but what I really want to do is, and I'm just waiting for the money, the time, the opportunity, the whatever. Like, I want to do the Statue of Liberty or,
Cast it or something.
Yeah, is it just some big goal, or is it just kind of like you're exploring as you go down this path and you just sort of see where you end up?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like my practice goes, I'm exploring as I go. As far as like how the work evolves, it's all pretty naturally kind of evolving. I think the more money I have, the more space I have, the bigger I would probably go with the things that I would cast or the way that I would assemble them. But goal is to kind of just keep on doing it. Just keep on feeling inspired and curious and motivated to make work and find other people that are doing similar things and
Mm-hmm.
keep it moving.
Have you ever thought of using human parts in your stuff, like different
cast-
sized hands or feet, like on a walkway, or something to
Yeah.
just give you a sense of, or to even play with like a tiny hand on a big thing, or something that kind of like challenges your sense of like what it would be like to interact with that thing, or is
Yeah.
that too
Well,
literal?
I think the human body is too literal. I think
Okay.
using like architecture and things that reference the body is like kind of more my style. It's a little bit maybe more poetic.
Yeah.
And you could miss it. And I like the idea that you could just like totally miss connections, or you could like just completely miss. I did an exhibition in St. Louis a couple months ago and casted a brick wall in the interior of a gallery, and exhibited it just kind of mirrored. And so many people just, it totally went over their heads that it was that wall that it was next to that was casted. And I loved that. And there was a friend who was kind of just like, but what if they don't know when they leave? And I was just like, that's okay. Like, I don't think us knowing everything is what it's about. It's more important to leave kind of the open-endedness of the discovery and the chance of that discovery. So, yeah, I think just the possibility of discovering something. And I forgot what the last question was, but
The last question was about using human parts in your work.
I feel like that's like a residual. You have to ask something like that after Halloween. We're still kind of
Well,
it's creepy. It's like
well, I mean, I get that you want each individual to sort of experience it in their own way, their own reference or their own relationship
Or
to that
discovery of it.
thing. But I'm always thinking of just different ways of saying the same thing.
Sure.
You could say it. So you could also say that through showing the relationship in some weird way.
Yeah.
Or, turn it inside out. So because it's already kind of inside out.
it is.
You're taking
it
a
for sure is inside
a
out.
positive and turning it into a negative.
Yeah.
Not in a good or bad sort
Right.
of positive way. But yeah, you know what I mean. Anyway, so we've run out of time. But I want to thank you very much. Your website again is
CarlyTrosclair.com, CarlyTrosclair.com.
That's good. Thank you.
Instagram, Carly Trosclair Studio.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so weird.
Why?
It's the same name.
Well, I know. I was like, what name could I use on this other social media platform?
How about if I use my own name? Okay.
Keep it easy.
Right. Well, you have been listening to, believe it or not, CU Immigration, otherwise known as Art Talk, here on WRFU-LP Urbana 104.5 FM. We appreciate you tuning in. Usually we talk about immigration at this time, and we will again, but this time we didn't. And that's just okay. It has to be okay because that's what we did. So I thank you for tuning in. I thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. I know you're really busy right now and you don't have a lot of free time here, but it was really kind of you to share some time with us and speak to the listeners about cool stuff that they hopefully will get to see someday.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. We'll see you later